If the season was over, which 13 anglers from the Bassmaster Elite Series would not qualify for 2026? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. If you're new, my name is Steve Chapman. I've had many people ask me, Steve, why don't I do a who's in and who's out of the Bassmaster Elites? And quite honestly, because the Bassmaster Elites have anglers that have been in their series for decades, it's really tough to go back and rank all of them and put them in a spreadsheet and do the whole 9 yards. I don't want to say that I'm lazy because I love doing statistics, but when I looked at it, I was ultra confused. However, thanks to the Bassmaster TnZ Podcast, the Tommy and Zona podcast, we now know that if the season ended today, which 13 anglers would not requalify for 2026. I want to make sure I give huge props to Ronnie, Tommy, and Zona for doing this. This is really unheard of, to be honest. And it allows anglers to know where they stand with just a couple more tournaments left. I should say, I think the BPT also puts out a list to the anglers after the tournaments to tell them where they're ranked, but it isn't shared with the public and the fans. So thank you to the TnZ Podcast. Now I'm going to put a link in the description below and go to like minute 31 and you can hear Zona tell us exactly what it is. And they're better at explaining this situation than I am. And it's really fantastic, to be honest. I love that they're being unbelievably transparent in what's happening. And they make a good reference, Zona makes a good reference about how if you play football or if you're in football and you don't score, or you can't get the ball into the hole when you golf, that you get cut almost immediately. You don't move on. Whereas there's been a lot of people that have been, no offense, dead weight in these tournament organizations for years. As Zona says, decades. And they're in the bottom tier. But I would recommend going and watching Mark Zona just perfectly articulate what I have said for years. He says it so much more eloquent and so much better. It's not even funny. It makes me look like I'm brainless, but that's all right. So here is what we know. Bassmaster is going to try to get down to about 100 anglers next season for 2026. They are going to cut 13 anglers from the 2025 group of anglers, and everyone else will qualify. Then they'll have the 100, and then they'll also allow some exemptions too, and it'll make up the 2026 field. Remember, there's 10 anglers who are going to qualify from the Opens and into the EQs, but those top 10 anglers and Angler of the Year points will get the opportunity to join the Elites, making that 103 field anglers that they'll have in 2026. Now, they mention in the podcast that if you make it within that top 70 in Angler of the Year points, that you don't need to worry about it. And there's a graphic that I'm going to put up from the TnZ Podcast that shows the anglers who currently, if they're in the red, they're in trouble. If they're in the blue, they're still, technically they would have qualified right now, but they're in that bubble zone. You don't want to be in that bubble zone. And keep it real, Zona's explanation about the anglers in the mid and lower tier is blunt, it's honest, and it's appreciative, and it's respectable. And at times, that might hurt an angler's feelings. It's not meant to hurt their feelings, but sometimes the truth hurts. But go check out that podcast because it's brilliant. Now, who's in trouble? Bernie Schultz, Ben Milliken, Ray Hanselman, Mark Menendez, Paul Mueller, Mark Frazier, Chad Pipkins, Brad Watley, Ed Lochran, Alex Weatherall, Jonathan Kelly, Matty Wong, and Tim Doobie. Now, those guys in the blue like Cifuentes and De Palma, Sands, Gaston, Jakobsen, Redwine, and Latuso, they're in the green, But with 2 tournaments left, if they have a bad tournament, they can get relegated down. And nobody wants to be relegated out of the elites. This is their jobs. And it'll be interesting to see if they want to continue fishing the elites by going back into the opens and trying to requalify, or if these anglers just don't say, okay, I need to move on to another organization and go fish that organization. Because some of these guys are still fantastic, amazing anglers. But they're just not elite. And really the one that surprises me the most on this list is Ben Milliken, because Ben last year, when he qualified, finished in the top 30. And then this year, I really just don't know what's happened. I've tried to text Ben, but he just doesn't get my texts. I'd love to know if it's maybe focus or maybe the drive isn't there. And really, Ben Milliken doesn't need B.A.S.S. He can be unbelievably successful and has been unbelievably successful as a content creator and as an owner of 6th Sense. So I don't know if he's just as motivated as he once was. And there's really nothing wrong with that. Ben can go anywhere. Anyone will take him. But he's the biggest surprise on here because I really just didn't think that he would be in this lower tier in his 2nd year because he just did so well last year. I mean, you make the top 30 last year and you're out in the bottom, not in the top 70 this year. And with 2 tournaments left, some of these guys have an opportunity to get themselves into that top 70, but they can't have a bad tournament. You can't have the next 2 tournaments, you can't have a bad tournament. You need to dominate. You need to go out there and smack them. You need to rip their faces off. But hopefully we'll get an updated list after the next tournament on the TnZ Podcast. And again, go check out the TnZ Podcast with Tommy and Mark. It's a great podcast. And it's brutally honest right now. And I love that. I love this. So again, thanks to Tommy, Mark, and Ronnie for making the graphic and doing the work. Ronnie Moore, thank you. Who's on that list? Who's in that red list that you don't want to see released or relegated? Comment below and tell me what you think. Thanks to all the new subscribers and members and everyone who's interactive on the channel. I really do appreciate it. You know the story. It's a weird one. I appreciate everybody. I'm humbled by the whole situation. It's really ridiculous. So thank you. Thank you for the growth. Thank you for the views. Thank you for everything. But if you're not a subscriber, you should be. Just click that button and welcome to the team. Remember, take a kid fishing, tight lines, cheers, and get your fish on.